Alright, so we've installed the shock. I guess we'll call this, for the sake of the video, we'll call this the shock support into the suspension arms. And what we want to do here to be able to install the torsion springs easily is we want to make a block setup so that it will hold this assembly in the lifted or raised position, as it were, on the seat. So I've taken a 2x4 and cut it approximately 8 inches long, and then I've used a piece of 5/16 flat stock to shim it out underneath, and it keeps it tight. But you don't want it too tight to spring anything, like this little piece of tin here that we replaced earlier. But then once we've got that in place, we can pan around and we can start looking at what it takes to install the torsion spring. And essentially, the torsion spring is nothing more than just a solid piece of rubber and 2 metal plates. I guess front plate, you would call, has pins, 3 pins. These 2 pins correspond with holes in the suspension arm, and then your center hollow support encases the bushing, and it also fits in this arm. The third little pin, the solid pin, is actually for a tie bar that stabilizes things between the torsion springs. So what we're going to do, and we've already checked earlier that the pins are free. They go into the torsion arms like they're supposed, or into the suspension arms like they're supposed to. And this may take just a little finagling, but not a lot. But the trick here is we've got to get everything flush. We've already done the other one. And if you're still having a hard time with these, getting everything tight and flush, you can use something like a quick grip or a C-clamp. Works fairly well. And a tap from a little hammer never hurts. Just tapping on it gently, and we can release, and everything is in place just like it should be. Next, what we'll do is install the tie bar with the flanges on the bushings facing the torsion springs like so. And while we're doing that, it's also important to note when installing the torsion springs, because this is something that can get a little confusing. As we install the torsion springs, when Steiner sends the parts to you, they're going to be labeled R for right and L for left. And you always have to keep in mind, we're working upside down, and sometimes you're working backwards from front to back. You always have to remember that left and right mean, as you're standing behind the tractor with the seat on the tractor, left is on your left side, right's on the right, so on and so forth. Just something to keep in mind, because it is possible to install these backwards, and that's not something we want to do, because the geometry of the springs is all off, and getting the tie bar installed here would probably be nerve-wracking to unbelievable. So we've got this in place. I've already taken the liberty of lubing up these 2 pins with some good moly grease. I believe in just a light coat of grease here, just to keep everything smooth, because this does, as you sit on the seat, these bushings in the torsion springs will pivot on these pins. Don't forget the little nylon thrust washers that come in your Steiner bushing kit, as they wear up against right here. Now, when we install this plate, remember, we're working upside down. This little lip is what actually sits on top of the battery box. You've got a lip in the front for your shock support and one here. Just bear that in mind. It's because it is possible to install this upside down and then realize 10 minutes from now that you have to go back and do it again. That's never fun. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get these in. Now, sometimes that's not as easy as I just made it look. Perhaps you kind of have to, you just use your bare hands and, like you're the Incredible Hulk, and try to persuade everything in place. So the next step with what we're going to do is use our tool to set the torsion springs. Now, when it comes to installing the torsion springs and setting, more or less what we have to do is spread these tabs out on the torsion springs so that we can put our tie bar in place. Now, that is not easy to do. The John Deere manual actually says just to install everything and take a couple large roll punches or pry bars and do this. I don't know if the rubber they used in the 1950s was different than today's materials, but that's darn near impossible, and you will probably catch a punch in the mouth because if you use that method, it's rather unsafe. So I'm going to get things set up when we come back and show how to use the special tools that I've purchased just for this project that make this part go much, much simpler.